well up to a 36% grade, so we're well within that range. And for those in the front, you may notice that my foot's on the gas pedal at the moment. I'm never really going to use the brake going down this hill. That's because of something called transmission lockup. Now, as I understand it, transmission lockup matches out the speed of the engine, the transmission, and the differentials. So this, in a sense, directly connects the speed of the wheels to the speed of the engine. So this ends up doing two things. It slows us down and at the same time allows me to see the speed at which my transmission is spinning on the tack, and I can prevent it from overspeeding. We're also driving around on 6-tire tires, each inflated to about 14 psi. So that's why they all may look a little bit flat, kind of like marshmallows, but they're meant to be that way. And that's so that we don't damage the surface of the ice. Also, having somewhat underinflated tires gives us more surface area, and therefore more traction on slippery slopes, such as the one we're on now. So each tire costs about $5,000, and this entire costs about $1.3 million. Yeah. So I have no idea why they're letting me drive this thing. No, in all honesty though, there's about 23 of these machines in the world. So Brewster owns 22, and the 23rd is owned by the US government and is being used in Antarctica for scientific expeditions, transporting food and cargo, and all that good stuff. Now, it's kind of hard to believe, but we're on the glacier as I speak. This is known as the ice core moraine. And as its name suggests, there's ice at its core. So, a few feet underneath all this rock is glacial ice. And the reason why we're at a higher elevation here, compared to the rest of the ice down there, is that the rock acts as a protective blanket. It's thick enough that it insulates the ice, so it keeps that ice underneath nice and cold, while keeping out the sun's rays of heat, light, and radiation. So when this glacier eventually melts in about 40 to 50 years, the only ice left over will be underneath this rock here, in the ice core moraine.
Glacier तो फिर क्या आ रहा है? See on this side also.
So this here's why it's called a Brewster Tire Wash, and we do have it here for a reason. It is man-made. So we've diverted glacial streams and directed them toward this area.
Tire wash
That's because we want to clean off the tires, just to make sure that we're not tracking on mud and gravel and sand and stuff like that onto the surface of the ice. That's because of something called the albedo effect. Now, the albedo effect is a very simple concept that darker objects absorb more heat and light than lighter objects. So, for the most part, this is a white and reflective surface, so it can reflect up to 90% of the sun's heat and energy back into the atmosphere. But if we were to track on darker objects such as pebbles, stones, gravel, and mud, those darker objects will absorb the energy that is normally reflected away and speed up the melting process. Now we can see that happening right now, on the right-hand side and the left-hand side. So you'll notice that certain stones are sitting on the ice and others are sinking down into it. And that is because of the albedo effect. So the difference here, compared to the ice core moraine back there, is the thickness of that rock interlayer. If it's more than 3 centimeters thick, it'll act as an insulator, but if it's less than that, it speeds up the melting of the ice. And speaking of melting, if you look at the left-hand side of the bus, you can see 2 more glaciers. So that one on our 9 o'clock, that looks like a series of steps. That's the Double A Glacier. And over on our 10 o'clock is the Andromeda Glacier. So what's kind of interesting about those two is that both of them used to connect to each other and to this glacier in the early 1800s. And the one that we're driving on now, the Athabasca, is known as an outlet valley glacier, meaning that its source is the Columbia Icefield. So on our Olympic blocks, soon to be directly in front of us as we come around this corner, you'll see 3 giant steps of ice, each about 300 meters tall. At the top of that 3rd step is where this glacier ends, and that's where the Columbia Icefield begins. So a good way to picture what's going on here is to imagine that the Columbia Icefield is kind of like a giant little molasses that's overflowing. And like molasses, everybody knows glaciers want to flow downhill and they want to take the path of least resistance. So, coming from this overflowing mass of ice are 6 major glaciers, and this is one of them. Alright, ladies and gents, we're approaching the turnaround point now. So I've got a few safety tips for you. Please do not go behind the buses. As you can tell, these are very large monster truck-like machines, and they've got some very large blind spots as well. So none of us can really see when we're backing up. Safety tip number 2 is to not go outside of the turnaround point. Within this area that we've created is relatively safe, but outside of the turnaround point there are quite a few cracks and holes in the ice, and they're quite easy to fall into. So please stay within the barriers that we have created. Also, we are at bus 536, and I'm going to be leaving at 5:15. It's about 4:40 now, so that usually goes over half an hour on the glacier. So,
See, the glaciers are melting so
once again, I will
fast.
be leaving at 5:15, and this bus is numbered 536.
Within 42 to 50 years.
I've also got some legal mumbo jumbo for you. So, Snowmobile Tours Limited is not a super responsibility for persons choosing to disembark on the glacier. So what that means is that if you slip and hurt yourself on the ice, we'll do what we can to help you, but we are not responsible. So please be careful out there. Even in this designated safe area, there are a few slushy puddles here and there, so you'll want to watch out for those. Your safety is your own responsibility. And finally, maneuver to try that glacier water. As long as it's flowing, it is safe to drink, but of course, you want to get as close to the source as possible. So with that, welcome to the Athabasca Glacier.
नंबर याद रखियो अपनी